in a bit of surprising news today, we had another trade in leading up to the 2021 NFL draft. Now, it isn't a team moving up like we saw with San Francisco 49ers moving up from 12 to 3, but we finally got to see Sam Darnold get traded. This has been speculation all off season of where or if Sam Darnold was going to be traded, and today we have our answers in the fact that the New York Jets traded Sam Darnold to the Carolina Panthers for this year's 4th round pick and the 2022 NFL draft 2nd round pick and 6th round pick. And this was a bit of a stunner in a couple different ways. So let's look at this from the actual trade perspective. I am shocked that that's all that they got. I mean, I guess it shouldn't be too surprising because I always thought like the Jets were going to get a 2nd round pick because last year Josh Rosen, or 2 years ago, whatever it may be, Josh Rosen was traded for a 2nd round pick. And Sam Darnold, he hasn't showed a ton, but he's at least shown that he's better than Josh Rosen. And so I would have thought that he would have got the equivalent, mid to late 2nd round pick. Now, I guess they technically got a 2nd round pick because it's a 2022, but they didn't get a whole lot for him. And they got enough. They got an extra 2nd, a 4th, and a 6th. I mean, that's 3 picks, but it's not like, this year's 2nd round pick, which always tend to be a little bit more valued. But regardless, if the Carolina Panthers don't have that good of a year, it's going to be a high 2nd round pick in the 2022 NFL draft. So that's regardless. So let's look at this from the Jets' perspective. Let's kind of go team by team. The Jets here, now this locks in. I think I had always kind of thought that the Jets were going to go quarterback number 2. It looked like it was going to be Zach Wilson. But the longer and longer that they held on to Sam Darnold, it crept that what's the word I'm looking for? There was this concern of like, oh, they're going to keep him. Are they going to take Penei Sewell, whatever it may be, and go that route? But they didn't. They traded him away. They're going quarterback. It's probably going to be Zach Wilson, what a lot of people expected. They're going to get their guy. He's going to be the man, and they're going to build around him. Now for Carolina, this tells us a couple different things. This tells us that they didn't like the quarterbacks. They're sitting at the 8th overall pick. I thought they were going to be a team to move up. David Tepper, their owner, had talked all along about finding that new franchise quarterback, and they were hot and heavy on Deshaun Watson. They weren't able to get him. It didn't look like they're going to get Russell Wilson. And so I thought they're going to move up. But once San Francisco moved up, then it kind of got a little murky because I don't think that they were going to trade up with division rival Atlanta for that 4th overall pick. And so if quarterbacks are going 1, 2, and 3, and we're seeing probably Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, and let's say Trey Lance going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then let's say Justin Fields goes 4. That's leaving them Mac Jones. Whoever they thought was going to be that 5th quarterback available, because, who knows, probably they're going to be, quarterback is going to go 4th. They didn't like. And they said, we're not going to hitch our wagon to hoping maybe a Mac Jones fits with us. They worked. The Panthers had Mac Jones on their Senior Bowl roster. He worked out in practices. They met with him, meeting rooms. And he's a guy that's a lot of people are projecting, and myself included, to be that 5th quarterback taken. And maybe from what they learned at the Senior Bowl, they didn't really care for him. They didn't think he was worth a top 10 pick. Maybe Justin Fields slides, and for whatever reason, they don't like him. I just don't. This move tells us that they didn't like who they were going to probably get with that 5th quarterback. And so rather than taking someone that they are forced into, they can go Sam Darnold and then have him and Teddy Bridgewater battle it out. They're probably going to, who knows? Maybe Sam Darnold, everyone thinks that Sam Darnold's going to take it over. Who knows? Teddy Bridgewater outperforms him. Regardless, but I think it's probably going to be Sam Darnold. Reports also came out that when Matt Rule, the Panthers head coach, interviewed with the Jets, he had spoken with Sam Darnold and really liked Sam Darnold from his time there. So I think that helped facilitate the trade. But it looks as if Sam Darnold's going to be their quarterback. They're going to run with him. build this offense around him. I think he can fit well within that Joe Brady scheme, and that gives them, who like they say, is going to be better than what they would have had with that, whoever that fifth quarterback is. Now, if we spin this, let's look around another thing. Let's look at this from the Chicago Bears perspective. Bears fans have to be upset in the fact here that they didn't get Sam Darnold. If I'm a Bears fan, I'm sitting here thinking, wait a second, we signed Andy Dalton to a 10-year deal, $10 million contract, and we could have traded a fourth, a second, and a sixth over the course of 2 drafts to get Sam Darnold. If I was a Bears fan, I'd be furious because you're going into the season with a pretty good roster, and if you could have had, I would have rather had Sam Darnold, a guy who has shown potential, who just hasn't had weapons around him, hasn't had good coaching around him. You get him on the Bears, you use your 20th pick on a receiver or another lineman, and you have those picks to build up. I mean, you'd technically only be giving up a 4th-round pick this year. You'd still have your first, you'd still have your second, you'd still have your third, that you could get impact players. You could get another receiver. You could get another tackle. And this team made it to the playoffs with Nick Foles and Mitch Trubisky as their quarterbacks. What could Sam Darnold have done for them? So if I'm the Bears, I'm not very happy. And who knows what happened with the Bears. Maybe they weren't getting that good of a deal. Joe Douglas has some ties to them. So maybe they didn't like Sam Darnold. Maybe they thought Andy Dalton was going to give them the best fit. You put Andy Dalton, give him $10 million a year, and you build around. And then and you build around him, and maybe he gives you a little bit more, and you make the playoffs, and you have a little bit longer run, and that buys you another year, and then you have to go try to get a quarterback. But I think a team like the Bears, who were quarterback needy, and Darnold was a guy that you thought could go there. Carson Wentz was a guy that went after. Russell Wilson. Who knows if they reached out for Deshaun Watson. They weren't going to be able to trade up. At this point, the Bears probably aren't going to be trading up unless they make this huge deal with Atlanta, which I don't necessarily see coming. I think if you're a Bears fan in this whole trade, you're upset, you're mad, and you're wishing, what could we have done? So I think overall, I think the Jets come away happy. You get three picks for a player that you weren't going to play. The Panthers are probably happy, saying, hey, we got the quarterback that we think is better than what we had. And I think a Bears fan, and I'm singling out the Bears just because they're a team that's desperate out there. I think Washington, would you rather have Ryan Fitzpatrick on a 1-year deal or Sam Darnold? I would rather have Sam Darnold. So if I'm a Bears fan, if I'm a Washington football team fan, I'm kind of a little like, if I'm a Bears fan, I'm pissed. If I'm a Washington fan, I was like, I'd be a little upset, like, hey, why didn't we go out and get this guy? So who knows? Darnold could just continue to flounder and not live up to the hype that he has. A lot of people thought he was going to be the number 1 pick and the best quarterback, in his draft class. He hasn't performed. A big part of it is because he didn't have any weapons in New York. So is this going to be a Ryan Tannehill type situation where he gets on that new team and he goes on and he flourishes, gets away from Adam Gase, gets to a team with weapons, and he has success? Or is this another one, like a move where a quarterback that you think hasn't lived up to it and just continued it doesn't? So it should be interesting to see how this plays out. I'm interested to see what the Bears do at quarterback. I'm interested to see what Washington does at quarterback. And I'm definitely interested to see what's going to happen at the top of that draft.